Data Chief is a podcast for data and analytics leaders to share their personal stories and insights on technology, culture, and leadership. Welcome to the Data Chief.
Welcome to the Data Chief. I'm your host, Cindy Housen. Today, we're joined by three must-read authors for the AI era. First, you'll hear from Geoff Woods on AI leadership, and then Wendy Batchelder on trusted data. And finally, Malcolm Hawker on how CDOs need to shift their mindsets. Geoff Woods is the #1 best-selling author of The AI-Driven Leader, Harnessing AI to Make Faster, Smarter Decisions. Geoff's book has quickly become an essential guide for executives, focusing on how to translate AI into tangible business impact. Geoff will share his insights on how leaders can use AI as a strategic thought partner and to make better, smarter decisions that will allow you to outpace the competition. Geoff, welcome to the Data Chief.
Thank you so much for having me, Cindy.
The Data Chief is brought to you by ThoughtSpot, the agentic analytics platform company that is redefining how the world interacts with data. With ThoughtSpot's intuitive natural language search and agentic AI, every user can access transparent, governed, AI-powered insights when and where they need them. Learn why industry leaders like Cisco, Toyota, Hyatt, and Capital One rely on ThoughtSpot. Experience the new era of analytics at thoughtspot.com.
Now, where in the world are you joining us from today, Geoff?
Austin,
home of great barbecue and trendy pubs.
Oh, yeah.
Geoff, you have such a fascinating background. We're going to talk about your book, but I also think it's interesting that you are a founder of the AI Leadership Collective. You also have been Chief Strategy Officer for Jindal Steel. Tell us a little bit about those roles.
Sure. So we actually have to go back to college. My senior year, I'm doing an internship, Cindy, and right before graduating, I sit down with the CEO and I asked him what job he thought I should get after school. And he looks at me and says, "Geoff, you're asking the wrong question. You should be asking, what are the skills I can master that are so valuable, they'll serve me no matter where I go. Then go find jobs that'll help you build those skills." Best career advice I've ever received, and it's highly relevant for AI because tech's going to do what tech's always done. It's going to make certain skills more valuable, certain skills less valuable. And I think a lot of people, there's a lot of questions about what jobs look like moving forward. We got to focus on mastering the skills that'll be so valuable, they'll serve us no matter where we go. Fairly early in my career, I had the opportunity to co-found a training and consulting company with a guy named Gary Keller. He started a company called Keller Williams, and he wrote a book called The One Thing, pretty popular business book. My job, I had to master the skill of asking leaders really strategic questions to unlock new levels of growth. And I found myself going into a lot of the Fortune 500 at a C-level, facilitating offsites, asking them the right questions so that instead of a business plan that could be 20 pages long, it would actually be 1 page, like super focused, super narrow. This became a huge superpower of mine. I sold my stake in the business in 2022, and that's when I got pulled in-house to Jindal Steel. I had been the coach to the chairman of the board and to his whole executive team. And when Naveen, the chairman, found out I left, he asked if I would come in-house. And I said, "Maybe, what's the job?" And he said, "You tell me." Now, this is a global steel company, about 100,000 people around the world, publicly traded out of India. I realized that there was just a big opportunity to drive growth across every operating company. And so I stepped in as chief growth officer. And when I found myself asking, how do you drive growth? It really came down to 4 key drivers: strategy, execution, people, and technology. And here's really all that meant is I would work with the C-suite of every company, asking them the right questions to define their strategy or their future competitive advantage. And once we knew that as a North Star, execution was, how do we have a focused business plan that we stay focused on? But then, Cindy, I had this huge realization: people. We hire people to achieve our goals. Goals are changing all the time, but job descriptions are not. And I found myself asking, how might you dynamically realign a workforce at that scale as goals and priorities are constantly shifting, you'd have to look to tech. The intersection of those four drivers, over a 4-year period, we grew the market cap from $750 million to $12 billion. It was wildly successful. It was December of 2022 when I saw ChatGPT for the first time. And when I saw it, I mean, I'm not a technical guy. I'm a growth strategy guy. I saw the tech and went, that's amazing, but I'm busy. I'll get to it later. Or you know what? IT will figure that out. Or can't we just hire a consultant to come in and do it for us? But in that moment, Cindy, I thought, what if this was a skill that was worth mastering? What if this could serve us no matter where we go? So I just made a commitment. As a non-technical person, I was just going to use it once a day, just to start to figure it out. The problem is I was asking myself all the wrong questions. I was asking, how do I use this to write a better email? Which is what most leaders are asking right now. Or how can this just be Google? Right. I wondered why it didn't bring me much value. But then I realized my career has been defined by asking leaders the right questions to unlock new levels of growth. But here I am asking AI questions. Could I get AI to ask me the right questions? And that's when I discovered this idea of you being the thought leader with AI as your thought partner.
This is a huge difference that I think is important in your book. And let's say where the industry is right now. It's what, this is my AI virtual assistant. This is my AI new hire that will replace me. And yet you propose, no, it should be your AI thought partner. That's a big difference from most of, I would say, the work and thought leadership out there.
Well, here's why. The difference between growing your business or going out of business is your ability to think strategically. So if you want to make it your assistant, you can. If you want to make it your replacement, you can. I just chose to choose a higher standard for the relationship with the technology. And so I make it a strategic thought partner. And it was that kind of use that when I showed the chairman how I was using it, long story short, he basically put me in charge of AI for the company. Problem is, I knew nothing about AI. But I ended up partnering with Google, learned a lot working with their team in Delhi, started driving it through the company. And that's when I had a bigger realization that I think most leaders are asking the wrong questions. They're asking, what's the right use case? But it is not technology first, strategy second. It is strategy first, technology second. So many of these AI use cases are failing because technical people are trying to apply it to where they see opportunity without directly connecting it to strategy and business plan and value. And so I said I was going to do something about it. And I ended up writing the AI-Driven Leader. It's now #1 in the world for its category, and have built a company called AI Leadership, where we help companies harness the technology in a way that actually drives enterprise value.
Yeah. And this alignment is something that I often say your AI strategy must be aligned to your business strategy. Otherwise, it really is just tech.
I don't even think they're different.
Yeah.
There's only one. You have a strategy for how you're going to win. You have a business plan of how you're going to execute against it. And then the question is, how does AI help you better execute your plan? And how does it help you transform from legacy ways of working to future ways of working? Full stop. There's no other plan. It's one.
Yeah. The AI or the tech is the how. The business strategy is the why.
Correct.
Let me ask you this. Why are too many companies just chasing the AI for technology's sake, or because it's a buzzword out there and boards are saying, what's your AI plan? What's your AI strategy? Why have we gotten stuck here?
It's not their fault. They're either being asked the wrong questions or they are asking the wrong questions. I won't name which Fortune 500 this is, but we're changing this now with them. The CEO went to the C-suite, specifically the CDAIO and the president, and said, bring me an AI strategy for the company because the board's asking. And so they started asking, what are the right use cases? Then they had one conversation with me and went, we're asking the wrong question. We should be asking, How are we going to build a deeper, wider moat? Based on that, what is our business plan for the next year? Then, how do we harness AI to execute our plan faster, smarter, better, so that we drive revenue up, EBITDA up, multiply our multiple, and build a deeper moat?
Yeah. And now you also mentioned when ChatGPT first came out, you're like, I don't have time for this. Maybe it can write me an email. Leaders do fall into this challenge of operational overwhelm. How do we battle that?
AI is the perfect tool to help you.
Explain further.
Sure. Well, first, I live the 80-20 rule on steroids. We all have too much to do and not enough time. All of us. 80% of the things that are on your plate drive 20% of the value. Then there's 20% of the things that drive 80% of the value, or maybe it's 90-10. Step one, focus on the 20. A lot of leaders, I have a decade of experience of this with companies. They're telling themselves they have to do everything, which is a lie to begin with, because you can't. There will always be more to do than there is time. You have to make choices about what you want and how you're going to go about getting it. So right off the bat, let's just apply a filter that we are going to say yes to the 20% first. Then you earn the right to start triaging the 80. But you're going to drop balls. They better be the rubber 80% balls rather than the glass 20%ers. Now, how do we harness AI to do those better?
Yeah. So if you picture our listeners in a room, could be the CEO of a startup, could be the CDAO of a Fortune 500 company, CIO. Management and their board is saying, okay, but I still need an AI strategy. And yet I'm trying to keep the company just running with all the new data, the demand for insights, upgrade this, migrate to cloud. How much of this is being more intentional, calendar management, blocking and tackling versus saying no and aligning?
It's a completely different shift altogether. I'll just tell you what's worked, because every company we step into faces this challenge. But when somebody on my team does a workshop with them and we introduce the idea of using AI for strategic thinking, and we always do this, we say, give us the single biggest problem in the company, that if we can solve it right now, it would unlock a new level of growth. The question itself is strategic, Cindy, because I don't care about AI, I care about driving results. When they give us that problem, we then pull up ChatGPT or Copilot and we write CRIT. CRIT is our framework for prompt engineering. If you just follow what I'm about to tell you, this is going to be a game changer for your results. Most people are not getting great results with AI because they don't know how to communicate with it. And it's just like a marriage. If you can't communicate effectively, you don't have a great relationship. Same with AI. CRIT stands for context, role, interview, task. Context. You give AI lots of context about the problem, like literally describe it in vivid detail. And when you think you've given it enough, give it more, because the difference between average food and Michelin star food is the quality. You put quality into AI, you get quality out of AI. As data people, you understand this. So context, give it the context of the problem. Role. This is where you tell AI the kind of expert you want it to act as. And it could be as simple as, your role is to act as my thought partner. You're a world-class problem solver, and you have deep expertise in my industry. Interview. This is the game changer, Cindy. This is where you turn the tables and make AI start asking you the right questions. And here's what you write. You write, interview me, ask me one question at a time, up to 3 questions to gain deeper context. Then task. Your task is to tell it what you want it to do. And in this case, it could be generate 5 high-impact, non-obvious strategies to solve my problem. You could literally pause the episode, rewind, slow the pace down so you could literally transcribe what I just said. And if you type that into any LLM of choice, you might just have a mind-blowing experience. We did this with a Fortune 10 last week. Their top 200 took their single biggest problem, wrote CRIT, and AI conducted this interview and spat out the results. The chief transformation officer of the whole company stood up and said, You have a playbook you follow your entire career. And it works, so you keep following it. And it works, so you keep following it. And all of a sudden, you end up in a role like this. But he goes, what I just saw right here made me realize we have to completely change how we're thinking about this technology. We are thinking way, way too small. This is just using it for productivity. We haven't even gotten into what happens if you can harness company data in a secure setting, or how do you drive this for operational efficiency, or how do you put this into products or services for a competitive advantage? I'm just talking about increasing the impact of your people.
Yeah. And so, Crit, you document well in your book as well. So whether people listen to the podcast or read your book, I think it's broken down there well. But also what you just described, Geoff, is better prompting with the mindset of AI as your thought partner. So I do think it's the combination. How have you seen this play out? Can you give us more details about a particular use case?
I get a call from a CEO and he says, I got a big problem. I said, give it to me. He said, we're venture backed. We've been racing toward an exit in the next 24 months, but we have a hostile board. And despite us killing our numbers every quarter, every board meeting is a bloodbath. 50% of my executive team's time is wasted throughout the month with board distractions. The chairman just calls me and says, our relationship is so dysfunctional that if he's going to give me 6 months to turn this around, and if by the second board meeting, our relationship is not completely rehabilitated, he's going to fire me and my entire executive team. He's going to bring in a new C-suite. And I asked him, okay, what have you done? And he goes, honestly, I have no idea. I swear, Geoff, it's not us. It's like these guys have all this childhood trauma they've never healed and they think we're their punching bag. Now, how many of you are sitting here going, what the heck does this have to do with AI? Nothing yet. It's not about AI. It's about solving your biggest problems. He asks me, can AI help? And I said, maybe. Can you get your executive team together on Zoom right now? And he said, yeah. What do you have in mind? And I said, well, I'm wondering if we can create an AI board. Excuse me? Well, I'm wondering if we can get AI to interview your executive team about every single director until it understands them on such a deep level that it can create a personality profile for every director that we can put into a custom GPT so that we could feed it the deck before the meeting so the AI board could tell us what the real board will say before they ever say it. And he goes, that sounds amazing. How many months is that going to take? I don't have that kind of time. I said, my friend, I think we'll be done in an hour. Well, how the heck are you going to do that? Crit. We get on Zoom. I pulled up ChatGPT, and I have a version that has levels of security so we can feed it the stuff. And I put in context, or I'm the CEO of company name. We are racing toward an exit as a venture-backed company in the next 24 months, but our biggest problem is a hostile board. In spite of killing our numbers every single quarter, every board meeting is a bloodbath, and 50% of my executive team's time is wasted throughout the month with board distractions. Chairman just calls me, says our relationship is so dysfunctional, he's giving me 6 months to rehabilitate the relationship with the board, and if I can't, he's going to fire me and my entire executive team. I swear it's not us. I think it's them, but I don't know what to do, and I'm wondering if we can create an AI board to help. Roll. Your role is to act as an HR professional with deep expertise in creating personality profiles. Interview me. Ask me one question at a time, as many questions as you want, till you can understand one board member on a deep level. Then your task is to generate a personality profile for her that we could use to train a custom GPT to create an AI board. That was Crit. AI starts conducting an interview about Susan. And Cindy, pretty quickly, it spits out a personality profile. And I look at the CEO and say, don't trust it. It's just making that up. It's just predicting the next word. Tell it what, this is my playbook. Whenever we get a response from AI, this is how you stay in the driver's seat as the thought leader. Tell it what you like about it. Tell it what you don't like about it. Tell it the top changes you want made to it. And the CEO starts hammering away. Here's what I like about this. Here's what I don't like about this. Here's the top changes. And AI spits out an updated personality profile. And he goes, that's her. Cool, let's do it again. And we did it for every director. And then with a few clicks of a button, we had opened up the framework for a custom GPT, which for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, it's just a mini app inside of ChatGPT. Anybody can build it. If you don't know how to build it, ask ChatGPT, how do I build a custom GPT? We drag and dropped each of the personality profiles in and gave it instructions. Your job is to be our AI board. Study every personality profile so you can simulate every director. We're going to give you our deck. You're going to review every slide as every director and tell us what the board will say before they ever say it. To test it, Cindy, we took the deck from last quarter, gave it to the AI board, and in 5 seconds, it had reviewed over 60 slides as every director. And one of the things it called out was, on page 8, Susan's going to get distracted by all the details of the slide. This is going to lead to a 30-minute detour. It's going to derail your entire agenda. Instead of all the details, say these 3 things. It's what she cares about most. CEO looks at me and goes, that's exactly what happened. Here's where it gets interesting. With the board's permission, we started using an AI note taker in the next board meeting, meaning we now had a transcript of what every director actually said, gave it back to the AI board, and had it compare what it had simulated to reality and tweak the personality profiles so it could have simulated reality. Long story short, by the second board meeting, the chairman said, this is the best board meeting that we've ever had and the best deck we've ever seen. It saved their jobs. This is ChatGPT and crit. So now imagine what happens if you can have proprietary data. Now what happens if all of a sudden your people are all thinking this way and harnessing it this way? We haven't even gotten into operational efficiency or product or service design. I'm just talking about making people better.
Well, and that frees up, that's a lot of time and intellectual capital and energy if the leadership is really just focused on pleasing the board rather than on what's making the company money or saving the company money. So I love that use case. I think a lot of people are going to be approaching their board decks differently. And then the transcripts, using that for additional context, that's important. Now, you mentioned a few different use cases, some, of course, given where you focused on growth opportunities as well. There is operating efficiencies. How do you measure the return on investment?
Depends on the use case. Sometimes it can be a legitimate drop to the bottom line. We had one where we took the last 2 years of spend data, fed it to AI, wrote crit. AI identified savings equivalent of 2% of revenue that this company was able to actually do and drop to the bottom line without firing a single person. That was easily quantifiable, straight hard numbers. Sometimes it's a matter of how much time it takes somebody to do a simple task that now they're freed up from or augmented. So it really just does depend on the use case.
The other thing you write about in your book and you care about, Geoff, is guardrails and ethics. So if you think about some recent headlines and situations that these LLMs, so it's not just ChatGPT, it can be a range of LLMs, causing psychosis, contributing to suicides, one even a recent murder. Could the industry be doing more? What are your thoughts here?
I've thought a lot about this. And I think about what's within our control versus what's not. And when I look back in history at past technological revolutions and what we can learn from them, the internet was a pretty interesting lesson, specifically when you look at social media. I believe that overall we abdicated our role as thought leaders when it came to social media in terms of taking a stand for humanity. You look at the things with depression and suicide among kids. I want that to be different when it comes to AI, which for me is why I want to take a stand for creating a new category of leadership, which is AI-driven leadership. And that means harnessing the technology to create better leaders, better businesses, and better lives. We talk to plenty of leaders who are like, we want to use this to cut 50% of our workforce. We don't work with those people because that's not an AI-driven leader. Those people are just looking to cut heads. They're going to lose the game. We want to work with people who want to build better businesses and better lives. They're not mutually exclusive. What's within our control is taking a stand for the human inside the organization, not just asking, how do we use this to drop more to the bottom line, but how do we use this to actually enhance the quality of life for the people within our organization? How do we use this to free people up from, frankly, tasks where they're acting more like machines? and actually recognize that every person in our company has human strengths. Can we use AI to help them identify what actually makes them and put them in roles where they get to harness their strengths, focus it on the priorities of their role in alignment with company goals, and use AI to turn those strengths into superpowers? The stories you're hearing me say here are reflections of me turning strengths into superpowers. I am a strategic thinker. I have put that on steroids with AI, which is why some of these use cases you've never heard of. It's because it's me. It's the greatest enhancement of me. So do I believe these companies can be doing more around the ethics? Absolutely. And I don't think that we will ever be able to say no to that, because there's always more that can be done. But what I care about is what can you and I do, which is not bury your head in the sand, like a lot of leaders who are saying this is IT's job or a consultant will do it for me, but recognize you don't have to become a technical expert. You just got to become an AI-driven leader. You got to know enough to cast vision for the future, to define strategy for how you're going to win, and to just start leading the change. Then you can figure out who are you missing that you can bring into your world.
So inspiring, Geoff. We could keep going. I'm going to shift to a short lightning round. What do you enjoy doing outside of work when you're not immersed in the world of data and AI?
I enjoy physical fitness. So going to the gym, I'm a crazy jump roper. So like if you think of guys who do boxing, like with the crazy jump rope moves, that's me at Lifetime. I also play sand volleyball on the weekends. And in a prior life, I used to be a professional hip hop dancer. No joke. So I do like dancing.
Okay, now I feel like I'm going to have to stalk your Twitter or Instagram for the hip hop snippets.
You won't find anything. It's buried.
How about who's someone, famous or not, that really inspires you?
I have built my own AI board, custom built to augment my strengths and weaknesses to get us where we want to go. Steve Jobs is on my board for vision, product design, and storytelling, but he's not allowed to give me advice on being a husband, a father, or a leader. Warren Buffett.
Ouch. Okay.
Yeah. Custom Steve. I take the best and get rid of the worst. Warren Buffett's on my board for long-term planning and risk mitigation. Here's a wild one. My future self 30 years in the future is on my board, so I can have the man I want to become advise me today.
Wow. Last one, and you can choose.
With ChatGPT, people, come on.
Or Claude. Can I do a plug for Claude? My preferred LLM.
Any of them. It doesn't matter. The tool doesn't make the difference. It's the leader who harnesses it.
All right. You can choose the final one, Geoff, depending on your mood in the moment. Either what are you most grateful for, maybe beyond the obvious of health and family, or something that has just totally made you laugh out loud of late?
We're going to go grateful. I'm grateful for the opportunity that I find myself standing in, as well as the sheer responsibility of it. I don't take lightly the platform that we have built with the AI-Driven Leader book and our company. I believe I'm here on this earth to expand what's possible for people. And the mark that I want to leave is I want to know at the end of my life that I completely redefined what leadership looks like in this world. Not just about how do we create better businesses, but better leaders, better businesses, better lives. I'm grateful for the opportunity and in awe of the significance of it.
And Geoff, we are so grateful that you are doing this work to inspire others and to think differently about AI, and that you've given everyone this book. Thank you so much for being on the Data Chief.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Cindy.
Next up, we have Wendy Batchelder, the author of the essential guide, the Data Governance Handbook. As the former CDO of both Salesforce and VMware, Wendy brings a unique and highly practical perspective to a topic that is more critical than ever: data and AI governance. In this episode, we'll dive into what it takes to build a modern, scalable program, and we'll explore how to move beyond rigid policies to create a culture of data trust. Wendy, welcome to the Data Chief.
Thank you so much for having me, Cindy. I'm really pleased to be here with you today.
I am too. We've known each other for a while virtually, and I know you often travel the world doing your work. So where are you joining us from today?
Today I'm at home, which is a unique experience for me. I'm often on planes, trains, and automobiles, but today coming to you live from Des Moines, Iowa.
Okay, very nice. And now, Wendy, the data governance book is your first book. What prompted you to write this and now?
It was a really interesting experience. So the publisher that I've worked with, Pact, reached out to me. And honestly, Cindy, I thought it was spam at first because I thought, no way do I have much to say on this topic. Like, there's governance is maybe not viewed as the most exciting topic, but it is so necessary. And I think even more so now as we're moving into this new evolution of AI. But I ignored it and I thought, oh, that's not real. And they reached out to me again and said, no, we really want to write a book on this topic and we think you're the right person to do it. And I thought, I don't have that much to say, not enough to write a whole book. And they were very compelling. They said, let's partner on an outline and let's see kind of where the process takes us. We wrote this outline and I thought, maybe I do have a lot to say about this topic. And lo and behold, 396 pages later, I had plenty to say on the topic. The book was only supposed to be about 250 pages and ended up being much longer. And a lot of that is made up of just my experiences in building data governance programs, really now against three different industries in financial services and technology and now healthcare. And there is a lot of nuance in how that's done, but it really comes in grounding in what is the business trying to do and how does data governance enable that, not restrict it. And there's a bit of a myth busting perspective that I brought to that I felt like was missing in other books around the same topic. And so I really tried to take a different angle than what, was maybe out there already.
Yeah. And so that's interesting the way that it wasn't that you had to propose your idea to Pact, they reached out to you. Now, you said something that made me chuckle that it's not the most exciting topic. And I would dare say that data governance has almost become a dirty word, code for no. We've debated, we should call it something else. And one CDO said, well, this is why we came up with the term data observability to make data governance sound sexier. How did we get here?
I think, for a long time, before tools were, I think, better, we did manage a lot of data through like governance forums and committees, policy, and a lot of like documentation, really. And, having grown up in the data space during some of that era, it was more from an oversight or, dare I say, overhead perspective that a lot of data governance originated in. But as governance has enabled and we've all slogged through committees and policies and compliance checks and those sorts of things, which are all important, but maybe not the most inspiring processes. There's been this evolution of being more tool driven and more focused on enablement and really helping people get, I think, to like the happy path for, good, certified, trusted data. That to me is really what governance is about. It's about how do you make the path to getting to good trusted data fast. And when you have good governance and it's really governance by design, it's enabling, it helps drive people to good data assets. That's really the spirit of governance. It was never to be brakes, it's to really get to be the accelerator. And that's where I think governance has really evolved into being more of an enabler. But I certainly understand why people have that, I'm going to call it a more legacy perspective of the way data governance maybe came to be. But we've come a long way from that. It's no longer just committees. It's more about tooling and, other capabilities to help get there faster. But there's still, I think this legacy thinking around like the manual processes of the past.
Yeah, or maybe it's that the practices and the professionals in this space have come a long way, but the stigma is still out there. And I do think people love data governance when you do provide trusted assets. They dislike it when it's the breaks, as you referred to. And they also love it when it protects an organization from breaches. So Yeah. Now, you advocate that governance should be embedded in the way a company operates rather than viewed as an overhead bureaucracy. Tell us some practical ways to make that happen.
I think one of the like gold star moments in governance, like companies that are really doing this well, they have governance at the table from the moment an idea is provided or a project starts. How many times have we been brought into projects where it's like, oh, this project's been going on a year and the data is not so good. And now we need to like spin up a governance or a data work stream to get the data right so we can do the system implementation. Or we need to spin up a data track because, our ERP implementation is going sideways and we can't get the data organized properly or it's not good quality. I think getting at the table early on is a great signal that the company understands we need to get the data right so that we can do everything else and not, oh, things aren't going well, we better start looking at the data. Like it's got to be the introduction of the project and not in the conclusion. And to me, that's a very different posture for when an organization is really being thoughtful and treating data as an asset versus as a constraint or something that they have to sort of deal with. And the companies that are treating data as an empowerment and an enabler, something that helps drive business outcomes, is thinking about data at the beginning and instead of at the end. And that to me is like there's light years between the two and the results that you get.
Yeah, for sure. Data should not be an afterthought. Another thing your book emphasizes is speaking the language of the business rather than technobabble. So maybe give us an example of what bad looks like and give us an example of what good looks like.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we've all seen this and we're all probably guilty of it too. But you come into a meeting and someone says, well, the data is not good. And, data person, what should we do about it? And they, show up and they say, well, we really need to make sure that we have metadata management capabilities and we got to get to like good lineage and we must make sure we master all of the data. And, if we get all of that synchronized properly and in our semantic layer, then we'll be good to go. And everyone looks at you like, what? Like, it's almost like you're speaking in tongues in the moment. No one really has a clue what you said. And really what you're saying is we should really manage this data effectively from source to use across the end to end. But you settle these data terms that make sense to us because those are the capabilities that you want to make sure are in place to support ensuring that data is really managed end to end and is high quality and, kind of gets back to trust. But nobody understands what you're saying. So you have to be able to say, we need to do X, Y, and Z to get to the outcome that you need. They don't care that you need to build a master data management platform or that you need data lineage. No one really cares. They care about the outcome, right? Why does it matter to them? And if you can't speak the language of the business, they're not going to really understand. They're certainly not going to understand why it costs so much. So you have to make it really practical.
Yeah. And that outcome could be customer service or increased revenues or what have you.
Yep. And I think that's really difficult to get past I will call it like the data metrics around like, we want to improve data quality from A to B. Yeah, like, of course we do. But what does that really mean for the business? It's the so what. If we move the data quality from A to B, why does that matter? What is that going to do? And I think we get stuck there a lot of times.
Well, and so you reference improving the data quality from A to B. So measuring the value of data governance, you have a number of metrics or measures of success that you recommend. Take us through a couple of those.
Yeah. So like first and foremost, those basic data management metrics around, say, improving data quality, governing your assets, those basic ones that I think most of us start with, those are important, but those are really for us, right? Those are for us measuring the progress and maturity of our data capabilities. Those are important. Like, I don't want to discount or lose sight of those, but those are more for how we manage our success. The next set, I think, is getting into like efficiencies, that's good. Getting into shorter time cycles or less resources needed, whether that's human or hours or number of agents, those types of things. That's sort of the second level, I think. But the real measures come into the impact to the business. So if, for example, if we say we want to improve data quality 5%, like that's important. Okay. So what do we need to do to get there? But then what is that going to do for, say, customer service? If we can improve the quality of customer information by 5%, then that enables customer service to do what? And so if that means that they can then close more tickets, okay, so if we improve customer information 5%, that means, say, the business can then close 5% more tickets. That's good. So what does that translate into? Does that mean that if we're able to close more tickets, we're seeing a 1 or 2% increase in revenue? Like, that's exciting. That's how you get the board, management, finance to say, okay, I want to fund your data quality program because you're telling me that's going to give me a 1 to 2% increase in revenue. Then you're talking in terms that the business understands. They're not going to understand increasing data quality 5%. If you stop there, you kind of lose them. You got to get them all the way to the metric that matters to them. And that's usually revenue, cost, et cetera. So you have to go all the way to that end metric to really get to the outcome that they're looking for.
I fully agree with you, Wendy. It's really about how does data and AI help me make more money or save money? However, many CDOs, and I'm using the term CDO because I would say first generation CDOs, second generation offensive CDAOs. So they're responsible for the insights, the analytics, the application of, but first generation CDOs and defensive CDOs, they're not comfortable with that. They're not well versed in converting what they do to true business impact. You clearly have this ability and have honed this skill. How did you do that? And what do you recommend to others?
I did that through a lot of trying and failing to translate data program needs into business terms and like not getting it right. It's like battle wounds, battle tested. So, first time I was in a data leadership role, a lot of it was compliance driven. And so I didn't have to get as clear on my why because there was a requirement to get a lot of data managed well. But it became very clear that didn't mean that the business really understood it. And so trying to get to a place where business understands, is supportive, is in there with you, is just as committed as you are to getting to results, that requires getting into the understanding. And a lot of that comes from really getting curious about it. And if you don't know how the work you're doing is translating into success for the business, you might need to ask those questions and not be afraid to, and saying, all right, if I can improve your data quality 5%, what would that mean for you? What would that mean for the results that your team has? How could that potentially help you? I think that's some of the best ways to get to the answers versus trying to predict what the business impact is. You have to work through that journey of really trying to learn and understand and not be afraid to ask a silly question or maybe one that you don't feel super comfortable with, but really seeking to understand your stakeholders' experiences and what data is doing to help them or to hurt them. And then getting that alignment, I think, is the final piece of success. So if you all agree that improving data quality 5% is going to help you close 5% more tickets and that's going to generate 1 to 2% more revenue, your stakeholder needs to say, we agree that 5% improvement in data quality will generate 5% more ticket closure, which will impact revenue 1 to 2%. It's even better if they're the ones advocating for your data investments than you, because they are the business. They're the ones often able to bring that additional credibility. So helping yourself understand these metrics, getting there, helping your business align with you, and then ultimately having them be your sponsor. That's the strongest path forward, but it takes practice to be able to do that effectively. And so being willing to try and fail and learn is important.
Well, I also heard you repeat a question a few times. What would this mean for you? And so what? And sometimes you do have to repeat that until you could get to that hard business benefit. So some great practical tips there. Your book also includes a case study in a highly regulated financial institution. What lessons from that scenario would you like other data leaders to learn from?
The case study was really fun because it's about a fictitious company, but certainly could probably apply to any financial services organization. But a lot of it was based on experiences that I had in trying to find the right sponsor at the executive team level, which is something that so many data leaders struggle with, is finding who is my sponsor? And it sometimes gets kind of tucked in with IT. Sometimes it gets tucked in finance, but how do you find the right sponsor to help you from an executive perspective to endorse the work that needs to be done? And that's hard. So I made sure to highlight that because I feel like it's relatable across any industry. I also wanted to focus on the fact that many of us are dealing with different regulations. And I think as AI progresses, we'll see different regulations in different parts of the globe also. And so it felt like a good lead in to say, here's how regulation can also play a role in this, even though I think getting support for a data program is pretty universal at this point. Companies have a couple things that are really, really unique to them. Maybe their product, it might be their people, but it's definitely their data. So how do you really ensure that that's universally considered? And I thought that was an important thing to put forward in the case study.
For sure. And now when everyone is trying to apply AI, you can't do AI without good, clean data, which brings me to your forthcoming book. Tell us a little bit about that.
It was interesting because the option was, do we publish a second iteration of my existing book as an addendum or a second edition? Or is there enough difference in what considerations are needed for ethical AI governance that it would warrant a totally second book? And similar to the first one, it was well, let's kind of scope out a outline and see where this lands. And the difference is I went into this thinking, there's definitely a lot more to say about the ethical framing for building trust in this era of AI, because you need the data piece that has to happen. And there are special considerations for the ethical use of AI that are unique to each company. And so what you'll see in that book is that I take a very strong position on the need to have a values-based lens going into this, because every company is a bit different in considering what are you willing to use AI for? What are you maybe open to considering? What are things that you'll never do with AI? And that's unique. So companies have to sort that out themselves, but I do lay out a framework for how to drive that process through an organization, different considerations around the data itself and what we need to evaluate as data practitioners around that data. I mean, data that's sourced for one purpose is not always fit for another use. And in the era of AI, we have to be thinking about, what other considerations do we need to apply to that data in order to say this is fit for purpose for AI, whether it's Gen AI, more traditional AI capabilities, or in the era of agentic AI. So it is more focused in that way.
Great. And so we look forward to that, available for pre-order now, but coming out in the spring of 2026. Wendy, let's shift to a short lightning round. What do you enjoy doing outside of work when you're not immersed in the world of data and AI?
So a couple things. One, I'm a mom of 6. And so I'm very much playing taxi driver a lot of the time outside of work, but I do really love to learn, actually taking a couple of advanced classes this fall. So I love to dig in. So big nerd alert around that, taking a class on machine learning and advanced analytics. So just trying to stay grounded in all the changes. It's hard, I think, to keep up in this time.
Quite a span. I think any parent with even 2 kids is like, wow, how is she doing all this and still investing in learning? That's impressive. Who's someone famous or not that really inspires you?
I was thinking about this. It's not, I think, any one person. I think there's been several women in my life that have inspired me to do things that were maybe not modeled for me as a child. I would say first and foremost, my chemistry teacher in high school really encouraged me to pursue engineering or accounting or just things that were numbers based and really, I would say, more technical. And that was not what was sort of presented for me as an option. And I've had a series of great other women mentors that have also encouraged me. So we wouldn't have enough time for me to list them all, but there's a whole smorgasbord of women that have really paved the way for me and inspire me on a regular basis.
That's wonderful. Teachers are so important. How about, and the last one, you can choose depending on your mood at the moment. Either what are you most grateful for, maybe beyond the obvious of health and family, or something that has made you laugh out loud recently?
So something that made me laugh out loud recently, my 5-year-old is a very big Taylor Swift fan. And when the news broke that Taylor and Travis had been engaged, she was like, I'm definitely going to that wedding. Clearly it's just, as if that would, we were all getting invited to it, but she was very sure that her invitation would be forthcoming. So Taylor, if you're out there listening to the Data Chief, Charlotte is ready for her invitation.
Oh, there you go. I love that. Also because we're Swifties in this house and football fans, and I have a Brit. So when I saw it, I texted it to the family and they're like, this is America's version of a royal wedding.
Yeah. So, we'll be watching that very closely in our house as well.
Yeah. I hope Charlotte gets that invite. Well, Wendy, thank you so much for giving us 2 books for the industry and sharing your insights on the Data Chief podcast.
Yeah. Thanks, Cindy. It's been a really pleasure talking with you today, and thanks for having me.
Our next must-read author is Malcolm Hawker, Chief Data Officer at Prophecy and author of the Data Hero Playbook. Malcolm's book has quickly become an essential guide for senior business leaders who want to transform their companies with data. Malcolm, welcome to the Data Chief.
Thank you so much for having me, Cindy. It's wonderful to be here. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. So we're always bumping into each other in conferences around the world. Where are you joining us from today, Malcolm?
From my lovely home on the east coast of Florida. So good to be home.
Beautiful. Another water person.
I am.
Beach person. Yes, same. Malcolm, you and I also share that we have spent some time as research vice presidents at Gartner. You joined shortly after I left. But as an industry analyst, I feel like I have to ask you about this recent headline that took over social media last month with Fortune coming out with a statement. 95% of Gen AI projects fail based on survey findings from MIT, NANDA. What was your reaction? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, my first reaction was, because I've honestly got a little fail fatigue when it comes to news reports about how bad AI is failing, because there's a paradox here. We see things with our own eyes. We know these tools are getting adopted faster than any other technology in history. Doesn't matter who you ask, Deloitte, McKinsey, EY, 80, 90% adoption at the desktop. So these tools are driving value. We know they are, but when I see these headlines, it's like, oh man, it really kind of highlights so many of the things that we struggle with as data leaders. And, there's a lot to rip apart here. First thing is that the point of a POC is to learn, right? If the point of a POC is to learn, I really have a hard time with the word fail.
Yes.
even if you're not getting to production, you're still learning, and that's a valuable lesson. But I think when we look a little deeper here, what we'll find is a lot of the classic things that we've been wrestling with for a long time, right? Leading with technology, not understanding what customers want, not understanding how to drive value for our organizations and on. So I'm not that surprised. We're really talking about pounding a round peg into a square hole. The square hole being the way that we've always done data and analytics, the way we've always done governance, the way we've always done data management, MDM integration. That's the square, and the round peg is AI, which is probabilistic in its nature, which is contextually bound, which is completely different. So it's not surprising to me that we've got these old operating models and we've got this entirely new thing that we're trying to integrate to that old operating model, and it's not working very well. But we are learning. So I don't see negativity in all these numbers. I actually see a lot of positivity. I see a lot of, we need to do better.
Yeah, so agree on a number of points. I do think the survey results were misrepresented, and others have called out some of the flaws with the survey itself. We do have this schadenfreude, though, isn't it, that we grasp onto the failure headlines rather than the success headlines.
That's the entire point of my book.
It is.
It's the entire point of my book, which is we embrace this, what I call a limiting mindset. I avoided the use of the phrase negative mindset, but we do hold on to those things. We hold on to negative stats, and then we internalize them and we become victim to them. So instead of seeing these failures as learning and growth opportunities, which would typify somebody with a growth mindset, we see them as proof of our incompetence, or a proof that the business doesn't care about data, or proof that our data quality sucks, or proof that whatever. And this is a key challenge we've got.
For sure. And that growth mindset is key to differences in culture. Are you shamed for a failure, or are you celebrated for taking a risk, a calculated risk, and learning from those mistakes? Don't repeat the mistakes, but learn, rinse, repeat, and scale. So your book introduces the concept of heroic data leadership. And I think it's very important that you also point out that for CDOs and CDAOs, this almost is a do or die moment for their role. What inspired you to write this book? Why now?
It is a do or die moment. And we've been saying that for about a year, but I honestly, truly believe that. We are seeing more and more CDOs kind of losing the seat in the C-suite, that they're being shuffled under CIOs. That's always been true, but increasingly so. It's shuffled under CFOs. So yes, I think this is very much a do or die moment. But that's a kind of a negative way of looking at it. We can look at this instead as a golden opportunity. We must be the luckiest professionals because every 5 or 6 years, we get these massive opportunities. We got one in 2020 when everything went awry with the global pandemic, when our businesses were asking us to digitally transform and respond and react to everything that was happening then. We had the same opportunity with big data 12 years ago. Now we have another one with AI. The opportunities before us are absolutely positively immense. However, we struggle mightily with the status quo. We struggle mightily to break free from so many of the forces that hold us back from being a truly transformational force within our organization. Figuring out how to break free from the status quo is why I wrote the book. I'm passionate about growing leadership capabilities within a data function. I'm passionate about CDOs succeeding. My goal is to help CDOs extend their tenures. And when I was a Gartner analyst, what I heard when I was talking to literally thousands of data leaders, you and I know we get these opportunities to do inquiries, and I did thousands of them. And what I heard over and over again was a lot of defeatism, a lot of negativity, a lot of, well, try that, been there, done that, doesn't work. You can lead a horse to water. Heard a lot of frustration, heard a lot of things like, well, business just doesn't care about data, right? Oh, well, we're not a data-driven culture. What can you do? Oh, well, 300 dashboards and nobody's using them. I would hear that over and over. And those types of mindsets typified data leaders who were struggling the most. And it was a repeating theme that I heard in these conversations over and over and over. And when I started to do research on this, what I found is that those mindsets are hallmarks of the status quo. They reinforce each other. And the way to break free from that is to embrace what's known as more of a growth mindset, something you just talked about.
Malcolm, we hear your passion and are grateful for it. I want to challenge you, though, on something you said. that it is increasingly that the CDOs are getting relegated underneath CIOs or CFOs. I'm thinking of people like Ido at Delek US Holdings, who rose in ranks, reporting now directly to the CEO. Or I'm thinking of Lalit at Toyota, who reports to the CEO, Diane Schildhouse at Colgate-Palmolive. Are these just the exceptions? And maybe you are now seeing some differences in the customers you support at Prophecy versus at Gartner, a different level of maturity customer base. What do you think?
So we should be clear. The CDO role, there are more CDOs than there ever have been before. According to Randy Bean, I think we're north of like 80% now, which is amazing. My biggest concern is the erosion of the span of control of CDOs, right? Where we are seeing many CDOs losing responsibility for AI functions, right? Because they've been unable to move the needle on AI, where we are increasingly seeing CTOs kind of hold the mantle for data science functions. So my concern is a loss of span of control for CDOs, where many of them are being simply relegated towards more governance-centric focuses instead of advanced analytics, particularly AI. So I am seeing some CDOs lose that span of control and have less authority within their organizations. I am seeing people move under CIOs and move under CTOs into essentially what are senior VP roles. The people you mentioned, they're exceptional. They're awesome. Are the data heroes that I'm talking about? They're the ones that are driving transformational value for their organizations. These people exist. They're out there. And thankfully, we get to hear them, like Ido and Diane, speak at conferences, and that's amazing. We just need more of them.
We do need more. And so maybe also a subtle but important distinction too. So I also say, let's not call them CDOs. I love it when I see the CDAO because, and I don't care if that's AI or analytics, but it is the application of data at the point of impact. And the second point I want to make is there are a lot of business value-centric CIOs out there. So if you work for one of those CIOs, and I'm thinking of like Max Chan at Avnet, I'm thinking of Morali at West Bend Mutual Insurance. There are a lot of visionary CIOs. You just don't want to be buried under a technocrat who really cares more about infrastructure and applications than about data and AI.
Couldn't agree more. Don't get me wrong. Reporting to a CIO is not a bad thing, especially if data and analytics is reasonably new to your organization, which amazingly for a lot of companies it is. I think you could make an extremely valid case to, kind of incubate a data function under a CIO for a number of years, where that CIO is running cover, is getting all of the funding, is helping you build data and analytics maturity within your organization. So it's not a bad thing necessarily that CDAOs or CDOs are reporting to CIOs. It's not a bad thing. It can actually be a really good thing, particularly if you're in the early years of starting that function.
Yeah, great. So do you think people that are in that role, how much should they push for an update in job title if their influence does include the application, the analytics, the AI? Or are we getting tied up in semantics?
And maybe a little bit of semantics, but what I would say first is deliver.
Yeah.
Right? Deliver. Right now, as painful as it may be to get into a position where you may feel like you're undercompensated or undertitled, trust me, I've been there. The way that you break free from that is by delivering. If you deliver value to your customers, if you are the voice of change, if you are the lever of change and transformation in your organization, if you show value from data, you will get the seat at the table. You will be recognized. So my advice is put your head down and deliver. Find a way to deliver as quickly as you can. Particularly AI is a really great place to start these days.
So you also write about in this limiting versus growth mindset as another factor is garbage in, garbage out. Tell us about this.
I view that to be a highly toxic phrase, and we need to stop using it. And there's a lot of reasons why. The first one being is this drastic deterministic reduction that is largely meaningless. We know that data quality is contextually bound. What is good for one use case may not be good for another. What's good for marketing may not necessarily be good for finance. And when we reduce a very complex and very nuanced situation down to this binary yes or no, we do disservice to the complexity of what we have to manage. Not only that, we disempower ourselves, right? Can you imagine if you're a CEO and you look at a report and you go ask your CDO, you ask she or he, hey, why am I seeing something that looks a little inconsistent here? Why do I see something that doesn't look right? And imagine you hear garbage in, garbage out. And you're that CEO and you're investing millions in data infrastructure. You're investing in people, you're investing in processes, technology, you name it. And what you hear is, I'm powerless. That's the last thing a CEO who is investing in data, who wants to stand up an AI function, that's the last thing that we need to be saying as data professionals. It is a disempowering, toxic phrase that it's a platitude, right? You and I learned at Gartner, avoid platitudes because they're largely useless, right? Meaningless. They hold no value. And in the case of garbage in, garbage out, they actually disempower us.
Yes. And so it's fixing that garbage in that CDAOs have to solve for. And you and I recently had an interesting debate on LinkedIn. So we do have a policy, no politics. However, this was in regard to the firing of the Bureau of Labor Statistics in restating the job numbers. And so bring our listeners up to date. What was your take on this, the debate that we were having online?
My gosh. Well, so there were two different perspectives here. One was this was proof positive of an overreach of authority from the executive branch, and that while somebody's trying to kind of control and manipulate the numbers, my perspective when I looked at it was like, wow, they're in the business of building a forecast, right? They're literally in the business of building forecasts that forecast economic growth, that forecast labor growth. They're forecasting, okay? And we're data people. This is what we do. We build models to try to forecast things. If our forecasts are off by a factor, right, that's a problem. If our forecasts are off 70, 80, 90%, that is a real problem, right? And if we are to take accountability for the things that we do, we are to be masters of our success, well, we need to take ownership of that. I understand, when I dug into it, it's like, wow, there's lack of funding and this old methodology.
Very old methodology. Yeah.
It was based on like phone surveys. And when I look at that, I'm like, man, first of all, your forecasts are horrible. Second of all, you're relying on these really old 1960s methodology. Hey, maybe it is time from an accountability perspective to look at some change here. And, I understand, if you go into one of these positions and there's no funding and there's no support, there's fewer people. But at the same time, if you're that bad at forecasting, maybe it's time, for a change in leadership.
Yeah. And challenge the data collection methods to look for reinforcing data points from alternative data sources. Like jobs, who is showing up in downtown New York City that shows that there was something about likewise. So in China, when they were overstating their GDP, people could see the illumination from factories were actually down. So look for these reinforcing data points, but that is a difference. And I would say data literacy was part of this as well, not understanding how archaic the data collection processes were. You also, Malcolm, urge leaders to become customer-driven, not data-driven. So again, are we focused on semantics? Because some would say make it data-informed. Share a little bit more here.
No, this one is not semantics. There's meat on this bone, metaphorically speaking. And we absolutely positively need to be more customer-driven. I've spoken in front of extremely large groups of people over the last few months, and I've actually asked large groups of data practitioners, how many here actually use the phrase customer? And it's like one or two out of a room full of hundreds of people, right? That to me says something. This is not just semantics. What we're talking about here, Cindy, is being outside in instead of inside out, right? And we are very insular. We are very inside out. We want the world to know how we work. We want the world to know methods and processes for creating data. This is data literacy. We want people to understand how we work, how our processes are, how we create our data, to be sympathetic to the things that we do, that the yeoman's work that we're doing day in and day out to create these analytics. When in reality, what it should be is we should be understanding business processes, right?
Oh, totally, totally. So some CDOs are like this. So it's a necessary shift
Yes.
in the job. And this is where I will also say it depends where the CDAO grew up. Somebody who came in from the business side, they are much more customer driven. And how do we deliver on these business KPIs, these company KPIs versus the how? And so this is the why and the how. And I have challenged people on data teams to say, fine, business must become more data literate. It's a life skill. But I want data teams to become more business literate.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, this should be about business observability and not data observability. This should be about business literacy and not data literacy. In the book, I'm fairly critical of data literacy because when I was having conversations at Gartner around this topic, I would ask, CDOs would say, hey, we're struggling with X, we're struggling with Y, we're struggling with adoption, we're struggling with getting funding. People aren't showing up to governance meetings. The list of symptoms was long. And I would ask simple questions like, oh, okay, well, how do you value what you do? Are you doing any sort of business cases for any of your work? Are you focusing at all on user-centric design? Do you know how easy it is to use your products? Are you focused at all on understanding your business processes and being kind of, actively engaged in what your customers are doing day in and day out? No. Oh, okay. Well, then what are you doing? We're implementing a literacy program.
Why? Yeah.
Right. But because so many of us have been convinced, not all of us, but so many of us have been convinced that the reason we're not delivering value is because our customers lack skill. That's something I note in my book, which is, again, a hallmark of a more limiting mindset, is this idea of what's called the external locus of control, which is somebody else needs to do something in order for me to succeed. If you look at the CDO survey from our old employer, Gartner, every year, with the exception of one or two things, the 10 things that are consistently raised as the biggest barriers to CDO success are actually external to the CDO organization. It's all the things that other people need to do. They need to become more data literate. They need to embrace a data-driven culture. They need to do these things. They need to give me more funding. They need to give me more stewardship resources, on and on. My book is really about owning that. My book is about things that we need to do as data leaders to become more value-driven, to become more customer-centric in the things that we do. So, I'm excited to be here to talk about it.
Yes. And so let's give some practical, very specific tips. You also write about the alignment of incentives. So give our listeners some specifics on how to fix this.
This one's huge. And it's something that we don't talk about very much, which is this break of incentives. And I would see this all the time in my conversations with CDOs when I would ask, okay, well, what are you doing? Well, we're trying to go this direction, but somebody else is going another direction. And there's conflict there, right? I'm trying to advance this needle and somebody else is doing something completely different with different incentives. And I would see it all the time. This issue of incentives, I think, is a really important issue we need to address. My belief is that we need to align our incentives to our customer success, right? Where our KPIs need to be business KPIs. And we need to push for that. We need to push for that during recruitment processes. We need to push for that during our annual review processes. Whenever it is that we revisit what are, any incentives that we've got, to say, hey, listen, I want to be aligned to my business partner's success and align my KPIs to that. Now, this is why I call it the Data Hero Playbook, because doing that requires real bravery.
Yeah, change. That's change. Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of having incentives of deploying Tableau, right? The incentive is, I want to tie my incentives as a CDO or CDAO to the success of my business partners. And when we do that, I think we will help solve a lot of problems and we will reduce a lot of friction between the data function and other business functions.
Yeah. So it's almost like the ones who are measured on least cost to serve are set up for failure or limitation out of the gate. So we'll cross-link to listeners a great guest on this very topic who practices this best practice is Anand from Ecolab. So we'll cross-link to that. You also advocate, Malcolm, for stronger product management disciplines into data teams. Give us some examples why. What does that look like?
Oh, I'm a huge believer in this, Cindy, because I was kind of born in a product management function. I worked my way up the ranks. I was a chief product officer once before I made the wise choice to join the data and analytics ranks, but a huge believer in product management. Product management is about putting the customer and their needs at the center of everything that you do. And we need more of that. That's the kind of the high level. But more than that, product managers also make sure that what they produce and what we're producing as products are economically viable. This is so important for us. We need to understand the cost of what we're doing, right? Plus the value that we're driving for our organizations. Yes, that is ROI. We need to tie the things that we're doing towards more ROI-based models. You can pick your model. It doesn't matter. Sit down with your CFO. Maybe it's not necessarily an ROI model. It's more of a payback model. Who knows? There are metrics being used in your organizations to measure value, and you need to align to them. Product managers know this. Product managers know how to take more of an MVP approach to the things that we build. They know how to take more of a user-centric design approach to the things that we build. They know how to do prioritization, roadmaps, building those business cases. That's the stuff that we need more of in data and analytics. Unfortunately, many of us have been kind of sold this idea that data products are about these raw materials that are as close to source and are about scaling the data organization. I'm totally for that. I'm totally okay with that. The common definition today of data products, to me, that's fine, but that's not product management. It's product management exists on the other end of that spectrum. If data products exist on the spectrum, shift left, which is the data mesh movement, we need to shift left. I'm fine with that, but we also need to shift right. Right is where our customers are. Right is where the value is, and product managers can help us get there.
Yeah. And there is an interesting survey statistic from Randy Bean and Tom Davenport that some actually do include the analytics and insight action in their view of what is a data product. And to me, that is where the industry does need to get to, rather than just, here's a data set, here's a trusted data set, let's go further.
Wouldn't that be awesome? We've been talking about decision science for a long time, but I firmly believe that when we focus on customers more, we focus on business processes more, when we integrate AI to that, we can actually start to close the loop. Meaning I created an insight, I created a dashboard, I made a decision, and here's what happened from that decision, and I can tie it back to the data. That is like Shangri-La, angel singing. That's exactly where I want to get to.
Yeah, definitely. It's okay. It's only taken our industry 30 years, but our time is now. We're close. We're so close.
Love the optimism.
Malcolm, so a lot to unpack in your book, and we could keep going here, but let's switch to some fun, lighthearted lightning rounds. What do you do outside of AI and data for fun?
My wife and I garden. So we have a tropical garden here on the east coast of Florida. That's probably why I look as brown as I do, because on the weekends we're barefoot in our garden, growing an amazing collection of palm trees. I have over 26 different species of palm trees on our property. Yeah, we've got all sorts of tropical fruit. We've got all sorts of tropical flowering stuff. So getting into the dirt, getting into the ground, and it's incredibly therapeutic. Just being outside. I was born and raised in Western Canada where it's freezing most of the time. So living in Florida on a little island where I can run around barefoot pretty much any day of the year is just heavenly.
Oh, beautiful. How about your favorite karaoke song?
Oh my gosh. Well, I've done karaoke twice in the last calendar year. One was kind of like traditional karaoke on a stage with somebody else. It was, I think it's Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer. Wasn't my favorite, not my thing, but everybody likes Bon Jovi. Everybody likes that song. It's, people can sing along.
Oh, incredible. All right. I couldn't join you with that. Next conference, we have to do the Bon Jovi one together. I'll practice.
All right. There you go.
And so given how many conferences we both go to, if you could pick your favorite location for a conference, where would that be?
Oh my gosh.
Besides your backyard.
What a good question. Well, the nature of conferences is slowly changing. I think things are getting a little smaller. They're getting a little more intimate. They're getting a little more talk with you instead of talk at you. I prefer a smaller venue, maybe even a smaller city. I mean, Austin's not a small city. There's over, 1.5 million people there, but I love Austin and I love a small venue in Austin. I think that's that'd be a good place to have a conference.
Yeah, that's good. All right. And you can choose the final one, Malcolm, depending on your mood in the moment. Either something that has recently made you laugh out loud, or what are you most grateful for, maybe beyond the obvious of health and family?
Oh my God. I'm literally every day overwhelmed with gratitude. I am like this, and even just thinking about it is getting me choked up. I'm like, I work hard and I was born into a great family and I was given so many gifts, but here I am. I live in a little island in Florida and I'm talking to you. I get to travel the world talking with data leaders at conferences on somebody else's dime, not even my money. I am grateful that I'm here. I'm really passionate, but I'm overwhelmed with gratitude about everything. And I just have the greatest job in the world. And I'm so grateful that I'm here talking with you about it today.
Yeah, and we're grateful to have you here. I think, how did you get talking to me? Was it John Thompson who introduced us in person? Yes, at a conference.
That seemed maybe, I don't know, maybe.
Could be.
Yeah.
Anyway, Malcolm, thank you so much for being on the Data Chief.
Thank you for having me. It's my honor.
Thank you for joining the Data Chief as we explore data and AI leadership. To continue your journey, subscribe to our podcast on your preferred listening platform and connect with me on LinkedIn or X at BI Scorecard. If you are loving this podcast, please rate or review it so others can also discover the podcast.
The Data Chief is brought to you by ThoughtSpot, the agentic analytics platform company built for everyone to create personalized insights, drive decisions, and take action. Learn how companies like Lyft, Brambles, and Navan are leading the way at ThoughtSpot.com.